It's the time of the season when love runs high. In this time, give it to me easy and let me try with pleasured hands to take you in the sun to promised lands, to show you everyone. It's the time of the season for loving. What's your name? Who's your daddy? Is he rich like me? Has he take us anytime to show you what you need to live? Tell it to me slowly, tell you why I really want to know. It's the time of the season for loving. What's your name? Who's your daddy? Is he rich like me? Has he taken anytime to show you what you need to live? Tell it to me slowly, tell you why I really want to know. It's the time of the season for loving.
Good morning and greetings, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you're here. Welcome to Monday, April 25th, 2022, and this is the Starseed Ministry. So welcome back, everyone. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by and welcome. And a special shout out to the Starseed Fellowship, those who are subscribing through Subscribestar on a monthly basis. Just so you know that the new moon reports are going to be coming out this week leading up to our new moon on April 30th, which is in fact a partial solar eclipse. So plenty more information about that to come, and just throughout the week we'll be leading up to this. But we also are going to be finishing out the lunar cycle now that we're officially in the last quarter of this month, or at least in this lunar cycle. We had a new moon that started in Aries that was conjunct Chiron, and so now we're at our last quarter of this cycle and moving into the balsamic moon. So I hope everyone is doing well, taking good care of yourselves. I hope you had a good weekend, whatever that means to you. And what we're seeing in front of us today, I thought was a really, first of all, just beautiful photograph that you can link to from the Space Weather Gallery on spaceweather.com. But I also felt like that's so perfectly visually is representing this converging of timelines. So I felt like we needed to talk about it today. We'll go back over the weekend, kind of familiarize ourselves with the transits that happened over the weekend, right? Mercury was in a square to Saturn. It met to the north node of the moon as well. And the moon is in Pisces now. It's a big week. This last week is not just the last quarter or the last quarter of this lunar cycle. It's also wrapping up the last eclipse cycle that started in November/December, since we will have a partial solar eclipse on the 30th, and then on the 15th or 16th of May, we'll have a full moon lunar eclipse as well. So there are a number of cycles that are coming to a point of at least completion. And this concept of the converging timeline has been coming up a lot, and I think we should talk about it. We should see what that actually means, something that's practical that we can actually utilize, and how to either spiritually, energetically, however you define that for yourselves, what that actually means. Like, what are the applications of this? How do we understand what this means? And this might fly in the face of some a perspective that is much more to do with a splitting as opposed to a convergence. And so, this is an interesting topic of conversation just in general. You say timelines and people come, hopefully will come flocking. We'll see. Because this is a big part of what is going on. If you're going to talk about transitions to the next density of reality through fourth into fifth, we got to understand time in a whole different way, and timelines, and the reality here that there are multiple timelines and dimensions of existence that are happening alongside us. But when we talk about moving into fourth density, moving through time, we really need to, I think, all of us, and I'm not here to tell you definitively what is. I'm just a person here like you, and we're all figuring it out together. But it does have, we do have, I wouldn't even call it an edge. I'm really hesitant to say that, but this Starseed experience does give us some type of memory, genetic memory, energetic memory, soul memory of this process already of going through the stages of evolution. So that are going to be happening throughout the week. Big things, like I said, all this Pisces energy, that means Venus is going to meet, and Venus meeting Neptune is going to be a big cleanup, very, very easily accessible to us, very palpable, right in our sense of what is valuable and has intrinsic worth that is right in front of us. Venus often represents, through our own intuition, our gut check, a sensitivity to what is actually balanced. And so understanding what energy feels like in your body, understanding your own instinctive language in your body is a really important thing. And this is, something that I've learned over a really long period of time practicing, being a professional body worker, being a Reiki practitioner and master for 15 to 20 years now. It'll be 20 years in 2025 since my first real attunement. So that is a process that took a long time for me, but as we are coming into this period of time where we have, I would say, assistance in some ways, right? We have the activation of the sun, we have our position going through the galactic plane of our galaxy, and what that means, it is amping up, and we have more, again, it's not necessarily outside, but it is outside of our own experience that's assisting us. So one question that came up over the weekend in a one-on-one situation was it was more of a recognition that this there was a wanting to get more definitive language or communication from one's higher self or one's guidance system, and just to, reiterate how important it is to know what the language of energetic, change is in your own body and around you, because that is in fact your higher self talking to you is through this. And part of going through the Pleiadian revival has been not only reconnecting to the role the Pleiadians have played, our role as starseeds, but to find that balance and that communion with the natural world and what is, because that does impact how we experience our gut check or our instinct. It is related to the physical material expression of the cosmos, the divine or sacred cosmos that we're all part of. So there's a lot of different themes. I really want to set the tone for the week moving forward, because like I said, it's a big one. And this convergence is something I really want to talk about. So I'm going to check in here with the stream and make sure it's good. Emily says, another one of my favorite songs. Oh, excellent. Yeah, Time of the Season by the Zombies. The dreams have been intense lately. What on astrology causes us to dream and remember them? Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, the moon is in Pisces now, so get ready for even more intense, I wouldn't even necessarily say intense dreaming, but the capacity to tap into the space that we dream in, right? The astral or the non-physical, and certainly multidimensional is definitely Pisces, right? In terms of our access to this realm and what happens there. So the moon moving through Pisces is going to get even more intense. It's going to cross Neptune in the next 2 days. Boy, every time that happens, it is like tapping into the full experience of your soul all at once, right? And whatever needs to be purified, especially because this is where Neptune is right now in Pisces, it will become really accessible and right into our own subconscious experience. So knowing your language is important, right? How you have either contact or contact with your higher self, or you are in fact experiencing the other timeline that is converging to a singular point. I think that is going to be expressed very, there's going to be a lot of feels, right, as the moon moves through Pisces in the next 2 days. And with Venus here, Mars here, Jupiter, Neptune, the fact that Venus is going to meet both Neptune and Jupiter during this time. And that's all in relationship to the nodes of the moon, speaking of the moon. So it's also very karmic. So, what's interesting about the reading that I'm going to share today is that it really stresses the importance of our own energetic capacity to be still, to have a sense of security within ourselves emotionally and with the world, in order to maintain at least a modicum of spontaneity and playfulness and a sense of discovery and passion, because we're going to need that in order to keep the waters of our own soul and our spirit still, in order to have a really accurate reflection. Because there's this has been the case and continues to be the case, and I'm going to share with you a really practical, what I think is a practical way of looking at this convergence, what it means to experience both sides of these converging timelines, and how the dream state, as Emily brought up, I thought was a great question, because it's mostly, I would say, Pisces, and then the moon, right, is your subconscious. And we, through either Freud, any kind of dream work that you can do from psychoanalysis or Jungian psychology that's more archetypal, they both identified that the subconscious is way more active in the dream state and more accessible, because it's kind of like, the conscious mind is able to shut down, but I don't even know if it's necessarily the conscious mind shuts down, but the body's ability to express the conscious mind is in stasis, and so it goes elsewhere, and that can be all kinds of things. Surely our subconscious is able to express itself way more in this state, but we also have the capacity to tap into multiple dimensions of ourselves, these converging timelines, the alternative version that is getting closer and closer and closer, and with Neptune in Pisces. I mean, it is the universal solvent of Neptune in Pisces. It is down to nothing but the consciousness that is pervasive throughout all of our universe, right? This is divine consciousness, God, however you look at it. This is something we're all going to have the chance to see. Yes, and the dreams have been intense. So also knowing what part of your chart these things happen in, where is Pisces in your chart, so then you can kind of get an idea of what themes may be expressed the most during this time. Also or how you will experience it. Your 12th house, which is the Pisces house. This is, I often have incredible experiences when the moon passes through my 12th house, because again, you're tapping into more than just your own subconscious, but that state allows you to cross time. It allows you to cross space. Those things are the way that we conceptualize them is in fact third dimensional. So it's often in trance, shamanic journeying, in our dreams, that we are often able to access these realms. So, in terms of symbolism and the things that come through and what they mean, well, that's definitely a 9th house and Sagittarian type of thing. So what rules that is Jupiter as well. So, I mean, I could go on and on all day about this, but I would say be prepared for more intensity because of the moon in Pisces now, and the moon going to be meeting Jupiter, Neptune, Venus, Mars, all in the next 2 days. So the thing about the converging timelines. Oh, and one more thing. This is just to keep us in the loop of the space weather, right? The sun is flaring. Let's actually look at this real quick. The sun is still flaring, and all those sunspots are becoming much more facing us right now. And the Schumann is still doing the Schumann thing. But one thing I have noticed is that the amplitude of the amplitude itself, whenever it gets loud, has been starting to go back down. And we know that the KP index it's been very quiet. The magnetosphere has been stable. There hasn't been any coronal hole until like yesterday coming into today. So that solar wind stream will reach us in a couple of days. And the sun, there's tons of sunspots and they are flaring. And there were 2 solar flares back to back very early this morning, late last night, that are right before this amplification that we see, but it's not as high as it has been. I mean, back down to 17. And, just to kind of keep a track of what's happening here. One thing I will say here about in terms of, let's see here. You can see that the field is moving, right? It's like it's just got a higher or just more active approach lately. The solar wind speed, the temperature, right? The geomagnetic effect in and of itself is definitely. There is something happening in this area, but for the most part, the flares are not flaring in a way that's sending us any plasma. And you can see a little bit over yesterday, which was the 24th, the 23rd into 24th. There were a couple times where there was more geomagnetic unrest. But for the most part, here we are where it's bottoming out. And we know when it's really calm, this is when the cosmic rays really have a chance to get in. And that has so much of an impact on us because cosmic rays are charged particles moving near the speed of light, coming from the vacuum of space, vacuum, whatever, if it's a vacuum or not, coming from the space. These have the potential to impact us psychologically, psychiatrically, and physically, cardiovascularly in particular. So this is you can see that it's already starting to build, and we did get these flares. So who knows if they're going to flare at us while they're facing us. If we look at them, they're all facing us right now, all of these sunspots, as you can see. And here's the Really beautiful photo. So you can go to spaceweather.com, you click on the photo, and it'll give you access to the gallery and the photographer. But you can see the reflection. It's a reflection that is coming into this convergence. You can see the shape here. Remember this as we go through the reading and as I talk about today the converging of timelines and what this means. Like, is something that we can wrap our heads around as energetic and spiritual beings, and what this means, because it's important to be able to see that it is in fact a reflection of us as we come into this convergence, right? And what we are feeling, accessing in our subconscious, accessing in our dream realm, for instance, accessing if we are intentionally doing energy work or any kind of shamanic journeying, accessing this reflection that is showing us the bifurcation that we have been in, right? We've all gone through the polarization already. And a lot of the journey at the soul level now has been towards the Pleiades, right? To balance the spectrum of that polarization, finding balance and a strong heart, a strong sense of stability and authority over ourselves. But the polarization happened and pulled us all apart. And I think there's something about the fact that we have been led to believe that there is a splitting that I think is very interesting, because what I'm really experiencing and have been, and it's something that I have considered now for a hot minute, just bringing together some of the research that I've done, and then my own intuitive, my own guidance, my own contact experiences, my own experiences on the alternate timeline of myself, and feeling that, like, it's so close to my feelings. And this is why I want to be able to talk about this, so that we understand the difference between who we are in this moment and the primary timeline, and the converging of that which had attempted to split off, right? And, CERN got fired back up not that long ago, just last week sometime. So there is some weirdness, I think, going on. So you can see here that there was an M1 flare very early this morning. And if we look down here real quick, here's another beautiful photograph. You can see those sunspots in action right here. But just kind of, again, familiarizing ourselves, right? Oops. The KP, it's really quiet. Here's our coronal hole that's flowing from here now. So it's going to be reaching us in a couple of days, right around the time that, Pluto stations retrograde, and Mercury moves into Gemini and is in conjunction with Alcyon. And then we have this new moon solar eclipse in Taurus. So that's going to be interesting as well. So I want to bring up the reading. I think it's important that we start looking at this reading today, because there's a lot of fire, as we can see, right? This whole horizontal axis is all fire, all royalty, right? Queen of Wands reversed, Princess of Wands upright as the centerpiece. The Emperor, right? This is a trump card, number 4, security and stability. It's also reversed, right? You see all along here is that on the bookends of these two royal figures in their reversal, and at the heart of it is this sense of just joy and passion and enthusiasm and a lust for life, right? Real courage here as well when the Princess of Wands is upright. So we'll look at all of these in turn, but I just want you to show you how much this fire and this royalty, and when you have the Emperor, because the court cards represent us, right? Actual people. The trump cards, or the major arcana, yes, there's an emperor, and it represents the archetype of the father, archetype of the masculine, but it is archetypal, as opposed to much more of a connection to actual people themselves. And you're going to see, look, the Queen of Forces and the Queen of Wands, they're both the same energy. They're both reversed. They're both on the same end of things. So there is a real strong sense of agitation, disharmony, a splitting of our energy, and a sense of revenge is real strong with this energy reversed, real strong. So we'll get to that. And the Emperor, though, is more of the archetype. And in its reversal, I mean, we can really expect in this situation some the lack of security. And of course, with Pluto in Capricorn representing all of the destruction, the devolution, however you want to look at it, of our actual institutional establishments going through the process of metamorphosis through the agent of Pluto, when the Aries as the emperor, as the masculine structure that actually leads to the establishment and the structure of civilization, when it's reversed, I mean, despotism, right? A bad emperor, but really lack of stability and structure, and a force of law, a force of bad law. Just because it's the law doesn't make it ethical or moral. And this is where we started with the new moon in Aries, about the ideal situation, which is again that flying V, and the convergence necessitates that to begin with there is some sort of polarization or bifurcation that comes to a singular point of creation and metamorphosis, or just a singular point of balance, right? And this is where it all started. So and Chiron was along for the ride here with this new moon. So every step of the way we have been challenged and triggered. Oh boy, have we been triggered. And I know it's different for everybody. It's important to know what your triggers are. It's important to know what's that thing or those things that gets to the heart of your own trauma, either this life, multiple lives. A lot of times I find that it is a couple lifetimes that the souls had to go through to really learn a deep lesson through a number of different experiences, usually with the same group of souls that end up being your family, your close friends, your community. There tends to be this soul grouping, and as starseeds, big time. And the Pleiadian starseeds, I think, are going through this a lot right now. Of course, because this is the North Node is still leading us in this direction of the Pleiades for now. And our full moon lunar eclipse on the 15th, again, another Pleiadian. I mean, the sun will be in conjunction with the Pleiades and Algol, by the way. So there's still aspects that are going to be unfolding around whatever it is we have to learn about the Pleiadian nature of balance and heart. But balance, right? This is about balance of the feminine and masculine, balance of the emperor and the empress, right? Balance of the yin and the yang, whatever that means to us. That is the Pleiadian nature. And when you tend towards the feminine and the empathic, right, and not exercise the other side of things, well, it becomes out of balance. So, realizing the polarization, experiencing the lack of balance, I think has been essential in this process of learning what convergence even means, but we've had to go through it. So I do suspect that what we're looking at here with this whole process is that there is going to be what we anticipate, which is the furthering destabilization, despotism, a lack of security and real power with the emperor reversed. But at the heart of it, there's a supreme amount of joy and enthusiasm and a sense of groundedness here in what does hold us at an emotional, familial level. We see reflection as our conscious awareness here. The full moon reflected off the lake. We're going to get into that. And surrounded by animals that are very still, that are, ambiguous in some ways. They are not necessarily making big drastic moves. They survive by being undetectable. And what's interesting is that is very related to asteroid Juno today. Now she's even moved into Pisces. So the moon will be, this morning has met Juno, and this is about the value of caution and realizing that it's just as useful to be able to blend into the background as it is to be out there fighting the fight. So, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't, that again, this is never an advocation for apathy at all, but you're going to see the uptick. I'm already seeing it. I'm already seeing it in terms of like, it's time to get involved. It's time to do stuff. It's time to blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying, but if you haven't been doing things for yourself up to this point, like that really is just drumming up a lot of this fire energy and really tapping into people's sense of wanting revenge, right? Ooh, the Queen of Forces and the Queen of Wands reversed, both of them. So I'm going to, again, I have a practical story to share with you, and it's going to be very personal. So, but I feel like it's the best way to teach this moment, at least from my perspective, facilitate this, and share what I'm going through and how I'm experiencing this bifurcation as it gets closer to its convergence. So, but let's go through the reading first, and just kind of unpack this for a little bit. I want to tap in to the chat real quick too, before I really get into this. And Megan is wide awake in Tennessee. Yes, she is. Dreams definitely have been intense. Yesterday was highly charged with emotions. Several friends agreed, and we all had unprovoked sobbing fits, especially all morning. Plenty of purging going on. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And there'll be more. Oh boy, when Venus gets into conjunction with Neptune, it's going to reach it's good that it's happening now, and it's coming out through the dreams. It's coming out through purification by way of whatever it is, tears, right? Remember how I said last week, whatever you need to do, like to sweat, that's going to help too. Take a soak, go to the sauna, right? Do some exercise that you know gets you sweating. I was out on my property all weekend, like doing, hardscaping, right? Changing the landscape of my property to make it more productive in terms of food and consumables, right? And moving things around, whatever, but I was sweating, that's for sure. Whatever you need to do, it's going to help the process, because for those who have not, and for those who are still erroneously tapped into this parallel timeline that is getting closer, I mean, this is a great way to keep taking loosh from people. So thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. And people are going through it on a number of levels. And again, Virgo, I'm telling you, Virgo, your 7th house is Pisces. That is your relationship house. Oh my. And I'm seeing it a lot. Anybody with strong Virgo, especially Sun, Moon, Rising Virgo, all of this Pisces energy is opposite your sign. And so it is in relationship, right? Now, you may have a sun in Virgo in a different house, but you'll know then that opposite house is really pulling on, the sense of identity that you really were born into, right? Like if you have a sun in Virgo. So it's not easy right now. So this is why knowing where these things are happening, being able to talk to other people and just this is what these ministries are for, and our Starseed Fellowship. I mean, this is where we really kind of get into everybody's experiences. So that's something that if you're interested in, there's a link to a video called the Starseed Ministry in the description box. There's the link to Subscribestar in the description box. And like I said, there's going to be new moon forecast for your sign coming out by the end of the week. So let's look at this one piece at a time, because I want you to actually look at the imagery, see what it comes out for you, right? This is a lot of how tarot and these types of divination practices work. I mean, again, as we transition into higher densities of experience, these practices, these modalities, they are going to be outdated, right? They won't be relevant anymore, because this type of work will be something that we all have access to within our own, just our own experience, by being able to, tap in intuitively or psychically or whatever, right? In your own feelings, your own intuition is going to be able to navigate you, directly. And these are just intermediaries while we still are existing in a much more third density type of space. So, but still the imagery provokes feelings, a sense of meaning, right? These are archetypes. And the Queen of Wands, like I said, reversed, this is, boy, oh boy, when she's reversed, get out of her way, right? And see, the Queen is the water, the Wands are the fire. This is about combining opposing elements. This is very alchemical, right? This is a sorceress. This is the feminine able to master their own energy for the sake of transmutation and balance it. So when this is so easily can shift to the dark side due to the imbalance, right? It's naturally imbalanced because of the what? Oh, look at that, the polarization of fire and water. It's very easy to get pulled into the dark side of finding this balance, which is more of exploitation, which is revenge, which is fury, right? Hot-tempered, over-dominant, possessive. She never forgets and she never forgives. How many of you have been this person and you know this person because you feel this person because this person is your shadow? I know I can speak to this. You can ponder and brood about the mistakes of others all day without any self-reflection, okay? There's a lack of tolerance, there's a lack of self-control with this person, and there's reckless passion, okay? Reckless passion. So this is our causal factor here that ends up leading to, in a lot of ways, the deconstruction of security, stability, a sense of power, right? The emperor is Aries, right? And just like we talked about with the new moon cycle that we're still in, this is closing it out, which is when we get triggered with Chiron into our own polarization. What this is showing is out there is distinctly all of these hot-tempered, revengeful energies that have been activated in many ways, right? And they will continue to do so as these two timelines come closer and closer together, because you will start interfacing with that version of you more and more directly. It'll come through your dreams, through your feelings, when you are triggered by certain stimuli, which I'm going to share with you what my triggers are so you can see it's going to bring this type of stuff out. So the template is already here. This is what this suggests. The energetic template within us and within people that we know, or just out in the materium, so to speak, it's already, in some ways, it's already embedded. The template is already there, and now it's unfolding, right? It's been unfolding for a while. It's just a matter of accepting that process. And everybody's having their own way. But you can see the pine cone of the pineal gland, the rays coming out of the crown. You see this, the bird, right? The wingspan. Remember our full moon. This is a big part of this part of the reading. Reflection is the full moon. You can even see kind of like an hourglass, which looks a lot like Pisces, by the way, kind of covering the heart here. She's got her hand on top of the cheetah, right? The feline energy is really strongly related to Lyra, of course, and a sense of just real power and control that can shift so easily as a result of the imbalance. This is why, in a lot of ways, these esoteric and mystery school teachings have been kept secret, at least initially, which is because of how easy it is to manipulate, how easy it is to go dark when you don't have the discipline to balance this within yourself. So there's been, and you know what this looks like, and this is expressed in a number of ways, and even it's our own pain and trauma that is able to be utilized in order to bring us to this dark side. I mean, all you have to do is watch Star Wars, and that's pretty obvious. And we know that Star Wars, well, maybe you don't know, but many of you probably do, that Star Wars, the original script and the writing of it, was heavily influenced by Joseph Campbell. George Lucas was on a first-name basis with Joseph Campbell. So the hero's journey, very much embedded. Anyway, this part is how dark it can get, and how easy it is to get pulled into the fury and the dominance when we are not able to balance that polarity within ourselves. Now, the Princess of Wands upright is pretty awesome in this context, because, or not, right? It depends on how you look at it, right? She is dancing in the flames, right? She is inseparable from another Lyran symbol, which is a large feline, again, a large predatory cat. But this is actually part of the way that she interacts with the world. That tail turns into this set of antennae, and she's got a sunflower on her wand, right? It's not so much a pine cone of the pineal gland, which responds to light, by the way. It's the actual light itself, and she's dancing in the flames. You got Vesta characterized here as the hearth flame itself, and courage, beauty, enthusiasm. There's an innocence here. There's also an immaturity here as well, and she is ready to just like, she'll just burn it all down behind her, not even realizing it, right? So how you look at this really, or how you experience this at the heart of the matter for yourself. And remember, this is that juncture, right, between what we're experiencing materially, right, what is manifesting, and where our vertical axis of our own power is, right, which is our root system and how it's released, and a set of chakras that are spinning and freely spinning, but not out of control either, because sometimes we focus a lot on blockages, but truly in energy medicine, if it's moving too swiftly, that's also a problem. Or if it's burning too much, that's where inflammation will occur, or you will dry yourself out. Anyway, there is a sense of, yes, of joy, and a sensual joy. Venus in the fire signs is enjoying this process. And I would suggest to just not get too caught up in the process itself, but to keep in mind what's going on either side of you, which is very much just a burning down of, in order to truly destroy any kind of stability. Now, we know that that's the Great Reset, and of course, that's something that, those who are totally embedded in that process, they're going to be going through their own, their own journey around this. So I think that Venus in Pisces, right? Venus in Pisces and all of this Piscean energy right now is giving us the opportunity to still tap into the waters, as opposed to just getting, just burning everything down around us, right? That feels really good when you are ready to enact some sort of furious revenge. But remember, what is it? The Klingons, right? Oh, gosh. Revenge is a dish best served cold, right? Is because you make mistakes and you get personal and you destroy more than you intend when it's hot and furious. But there's something to be said here for enjoying this process, to have passion and courage and enthusiasm. So when we are rooted, it's all about the water, right? The garden is the 5 of roses, and we know that the roses are the heart element. They are the cups in the traditional tarot, right? This is about This is a Cancer element all day long, right? The garden, whatever the garden is for you, it is something that is natural, it is beautiful, but it is very much contained. And these two aspects are the polarized aspects of ourselves, right? The little boy, the little girl, they are acting in their own natural way and tendency, right? He's got his slingshot, she's got her magnifying glass looking at the butterfly. They're in this beautiful space, but it is contained. It is protected. There is a sense of guardianship and a sense of somebody put this here as well. They created this and they are oblivious to it. But it's the idea that something has, in fact, surrounded us, whether it be our family, whether it be our own private and personal sense of power, whether it be our community or spiritual community, our sense of patriotism or tribal identity, clan identity, whatever it is, our starseed soul tribe, like this is here too. It's providing this containment system that is allowing us to just tap into our most authentic selves, which goes back to, in a lot of ways, being a child, and and being just naturally who we are. Now, in terms of the way we're releasing this power, so you have these two childlike elements, with the Venus in the fire signs, with the princess. You have these two children together in the Five of Roses as our energetic root, and then you have reflection. Number 19. This is the full moon reflecting on the calm lake. So this does suggest that we are having a much more direct line coming in through the crown in particular. So, and what this allows us to do is be receptive to this insight, recognize the differences between our intuitive voice and our lower emotional compulsions. This is a really important theme, I think, going through the rest of this week, knowing the difference, right? Sometimes we are looking, and I do this a lot, and I've had to be very patient, because what I've come to discover is that when you're trying to get answers, or you're almost like, please, I'm really looking for you to direct in some ways. When there's radio silence, and oftentimes there is, at least in my case, it's usually because they're not gone. You're never alone. It's the idea that there are things that we have to, as our own soul in this experience, we're here to figure out for ourselves. So in this moment, it's more about being receptive in that way to know the difference between what is our intuitive voice, and what can we align ourselves with that is really our higher self, and what are the lower emotional compulsions? What is fear oriented and driven? What is worry oriented and driven? What is revenge and fury? Where is that driving us? Okay, even in our own self, right? Because even if we are consistently pulled back into a certain type of feeling because we're triggered in some way, we keep feeling it, it is going to find its way to us in some way. And the thing is, just having the perspective of that, I think, is going to be almost enough in terms of managing what it's going to be like to experience this convergence ultimately, because you're bringing together something that's very real, which is this alternate timeline. It's still real. It still has us, right? Another version of us coming into alignment. So we have to be ready, I think, for that. So our receptivity is very high. We see this. We're acknowledging it. I think there is a more direct line to being inspired and being receptive, and the stillness of the lake, right, of the source of water, which has a lot to do, I think, with where the South Node is still in Scorpio, because that's the depth, right? If we are able to be still in that way, we'll get an accurate reflection. And the full moon in Libra, I think, is about having that transcendent realization. And when we have that, I feel like that we have a lot more direct access to higher wisdom for ourselves as we are experiencing this like really strong cathartic purge on, I would say, many levels. So what we have to look forward to, of course, as I said, is the Emperor reverse. So if you look at the Emperor, all these Aries themes, here is the Lamb, here is the Ram itself, and the Mountain Goat, because the Sun in Capricorn also is power. That is kind of like the progression of Aries in the masculine. This is the divine masculine in and of itself. Where it leads to is a sense of real power, establishment, where the paternal aspect of Capricorn reaches its knowing and understanding is in the Sun in Capricorn. So the Emperor, I mean, you can see the cross leg, there's the four, right? There is the holding of this globe that has the polarized, almost yin-yang part of it as well. This is a four-pointed star on each side. There's the crest of, that looks like a phoenix rising. And you can even see this. This is polarized in one sense and the other, right? One is light, one is shadowed. Same thing here. And there's his staff. And his head is facing to the side. So you're only seeing half of his face in this image. Again, in its reversal, it's really just all stability out the window, right? Or establish. It's really abstracting the establishment. And so the other part of this is despotism when it's reversed, right? And a sense that rationalism can really become a prison, like it really starts to push down on any spontaneity. And as you can see, everything in this reading is, in terms of the Five of Roses and the Princess of Wands, spontaneity and the capacity to be spontaneous and, less logical and more dreamlike is part of this, especially with reflection. And this is all dreamlike, right? The moon reflecting on the water, there's nothing but dreaminess and feeling along with this. And there's just, we know this is where it's going to lead, that they might try to put a squash to it as well. But see how this causal factor of the Queen of Wands reversed is a big part of this. In fact, we want to actually look at that in terms of our guidance, right? Because here she is again, the Queen of Forces. Now in this one, she's really balancing the duality, standing in the pool of water, but it's reversed, right? And so what does she see? Her reflection, right? Again, here's that reflection that we have to look at. We have to look at, and it's going to give us, there's so many things that are going to come, that are coming out and will continue, that are going to give us the opportunity to be like, oh, that's the reflection of me coming out in this situation. And this is this is what we want to purify. We want to purify these experiences from us, not to push them away or repress them, but to see them and to honor them and to release them and to see that that is the version of ourselves that could have manifested in relation to these, whatever it is that's triggering you, basically, to be out of balance. And the chameleon, I think, really in this instance, in terms of guidance, in terms of animal guides, is about adapting to the situation instead of trying to direct the course of events, right? So who would direct the course of events? Well, certainly the Queen of Forces is going to attempt to do so. An Emperor is absolutely going to try to direct the course of events in power, but this is really suggesting to surrender to the will of your own spirit rather than trying to alter or try to change anything. Allow the events to unfold and feel how your imbalance is being expressed in the situation. Chameleon, right? Just like the mouse down here in terms of our guidance, right? Overlooking some important details. Now, I'd say that the overlooking is more about you got to get lower. You got to get more in tune to the ground underneath you. You have to be more sensitive to the reverberations, right? What are you missing? And I think it's more about just getting still, practicing being like this mouse, because the mouse is going to allow you to be more, to scrutinize in a lot of ways when you otherwise couldn't do that when you're like outputting all this fire outputting, right? So maybe not so much of what you've overlooked, but really identifying these two animals that have to do with blending in, right? Being still, not trying to act on anything, but respond to things, or in some cases, not even responding, just being part of what is in order to survive in some ways, blending into the background. Because when we have the increscent moon, like we do now, right, we have our waning moon during this whole week leading up to the new moon eclipse. The increscent moon is signaling, when it's reversed, the Six of Keys, that there is much more of a contraction of resources, a contraction of there's the tides are ebbing, right? Phase of decrease. Energy and resources may feel tight. Wow, that's not something that's getting like shoved down our throats recently about it. But it is suggesting that we should be conserving our energy rather than wasting it, right? Not getting caught up in the fear, and again, acting out of the fear and all of the imbalance, but to realize what we've known this whole time. And when I say whole time, I mean that could, for a number of months plus. Energy and resources may feel tight. We know that, and we know what we're coming into. So and to realize it's a cycle. It's not forever, right? And again, the structure and the establishment going through real upheaval with the Emperor reversed is, yep. We can see it coming. It's okay though. It really is, especially because of where this axis of our power is, right? Like where our true power is and how that's going to allow us to get a really powerful, accurate reflection within our own self from our higher self, from our guidance, right? And to know the difference between our intuitive voice and our emotional compulsions. Now, we don't want to push away those emotional compulsions because those are the aspects we are balancing. We want to understand them and see that an imbalance in our ability to control or find stasis or balance is really how we get shifted into the dark a lot of times. And we act on things that aren't in our interest. And many of us have done it. We've done it lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. We keep trying to figure this out. And this is the lifetime where we figured it out, or figuring it out through our own process now. And so sometimes you may find that in your everyday daily life, you don't understand why there's just uncontrollable fits of sobbing. And that's because the timelines are converging, right? Because we're experiencing ourselves as multidimensional beings, but right now on this primary, waking life in this moment. So what's being released and purged, is multidimensional, I think. Now, it's very much real, too. I mean, it doesn't make it less real just because it's not this particular dimension of reality. If anything, we have the opportunity to grieve and really let go of those experiences and value them for what they've been and release it, right? And release them to, the experience of it and have them come along as well. And so we come together. So I want to share, I'm going to bring this back up. I'm going to share a story that's that is meant to be applicable in terms of how to work with this energy of your own converging timeline, right? So, and then we'll look at the astrology to close out. Let me check in with the stream here and see if there's anything going on. Virgo rising with moon and Pisces, double whammy. Yeah, Megan, you are, man. Well, if there's anybody that could really handle this situation, as far as I can tell, it is absolutely you. Alex K says, I'm that person this week with my last few days of work. Oh, that's awesome. I'm so stoked for you. I'm so stoked for you. I was outside hardscaping all weekend and thinking about how much I loved my the time that I was a professional landscaper and what that allowed for me. I was so stoked. So when I found out that you were like, "Oh yeah, landscaping," I was just like, "Yes. It's going to be good for you." Okay, guys, happy Monday to Light on Change. I'm glad to see you. Thanks for making it live. All right, guys, here's my story. So I will refrain from getting into too much detail because I want to just show you how to maybe work with this energy or to, how it may be expressing itself in your life. So, one second. So, I'm going to get personal, and there's a trigger warning in here. So we all have our thing, and there are specific subjects that are consistently brought and have been, and they need to be brought to the surface and awareness, and it's going to keep coming up. And something happened yesterday, some information I got yesterday really said to me, oh, this is going to continue to come out more and more and more. And so those of you who know me well, basically know me well, either personally or through the fellowship, you know that I am a survivor. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. Okay. So that's the trigger warning, just so you know that this is where it's going. But and there are certain there are lots of feelings that go along with that experience that I don't have the time to get into. But the part of you, when you are triggered by your particular trauma that took away your whatever it is, right? And it doesn't even have to be this lifetime. Believe me, it's a pattern oftentimes that gets played out in many different iterations. But when you're triggered by a specific trauma that took your agency away in some shape or form, right? There's that part of you that comes out, right? The dark side of you. And it can trigger a lot of these feelings that you want to act on in order to regain a sense of balance and control, right? And these oftentimes will express themselves as feelings or even types, your dreams, right? Coming out of your subconscious, and definitely in the way that you may, the types of content you're attracted to. Perhaps you have a very rich daydream experience that encompasses certain fantasies, right? And so there is that version of you that has acted on those, that has kept yourself in the darkness because of these things, right? So as you can imagine, I have to be very mindful of my own mental health and self-care in relation to this subject matter. And the more that it's coming to the surface, which it will, right? The enormity of these types of and how embedded it is in our establishment as a society. It's all going to keep coming out. And it's going to continue to activate that version of you, whatever it is for you. I'm just sharing my experience. And so being mindful of that, recognizing that, honoring that experience in terms of this is the dark version of me based on these experiences now coming to the surface, right? It's not so much, it can happen on many levels, right? Where we have the emergence of, maybe there's a massive earthquake and there's the emergence of a continent that has been long lost and then has a ton of our history embedded in it. Perhaps it is the issue of, trafficking, or the larger issue of abuse that is coming to the surface in terms of its embeddedness in our society. It may be having to do with medical tyranny and all the issues surrounding that. Perhaps you've experienced some sort of injury or in the past, your past lives. And again, it brings these feelings out. You want satisfaction. You want revenge. It brings it out in you. And as we are coming to this convergence, these experiences, whatever they are for you, are going to become that much more amplified. And it's our job as starseeds, I'd say it's our job as being here now as human, but definitely as starseeds, to be able to be aware of this, to know your inner voice, your higher self, to also know what your lower compulsions are based on these triggers and this trauma, so that you can bring it all into a transmuted experience. It's not going to be just this and it's not going to be just that. It's coming together to create something transformed. And it's important that you don't push away those things, or to feel bad or guilty about feeling this way, right? A revenge fantasy, when you have experienced things, is very easy to tap into, right? And I'm not ashamed to be a human being and, be real with my experiences. Now, what came up that triggered me and made it very clear that this was all really happening is that I got news yesterday that a person that has been part of my cohort for a very long time just got arrested for, I don't know all the details. I didn't get into the specifics, but I am sure possession of CP. And if you don't know what CP is as an acronym, it has to do with this larger subject matter, right? Now, this is somebody I've known for a really long time. It's somebody that I knew this person when I was still living in Pennsylvania. There was a mass migration to the West Coast, as many of you probably know, especially the Pacific Northwest. All throughout, like, the early, 2000s, even really up to 2012, honestly, and continues. I don't understand the real estate market in Portland at all, other than the convergence is so obvious now, right? And that in terms of people living, streets and on-ramps just lined with campers and homeless camps, and then you have people paying $800,000 for houses that are like, barely a lot involved, right? So, you know what I mean? Like, you don't even get an acre for that, and you're paying $800,000. So anyway, that is a total tangent. But it does represent, again, like the obvious polarization. It's unavoidable. Now, this person, like I said, not only was somebody I knew from back in the day, but was part of the migration out to the Pacific Northwest to Portland and became embedded in a cohort based on, what my partner was doing at the time, which was he was a professional musician. He was in a touring band. And there's community that comes up around these larger, these cohorts, right, of these particular, subgroups, right? So this person was then, and this is not the first person that this has happened with, right? It's another disclosure of something that had already happened with another person, exactly the same, somebody I knew. He was my roommate in college at one point. 2018, he got picked up. He had CP. I think he was also distributing it. He didn't just possess it. I think he was part of distribution. So that was about 2018. So I also know, because this other person got picked up for it, that there are still law enforcement sweeps, and all you have to do is look at what's happening with Disney and in Florida, and you can see that things are still happening along this front. But this is another person that was just like, whoa, when did this person get into this? What, has they always been into it? What happened to them? Well, whatever the case for that person, and the fact that it's coming up again and what it triggers in me also shows me that other people are going through their experience and they are not converging with the timeline. Well, they are actually converging. That's the thing. They have to have this disclosure. They have to have this purification. It has to be brought out at a soul level for them to truly make the ascension window, if they even do that. I would say that as much as it sucks for this person, I mean, it's nothing compared to what has happened to create the content for that person to consume. But they have a chance. They really do. They have a chance to actually redeem themselves and to find themselves at this conversion. So I know that's a bunch of different layers here, but it's the idea that it's going to become more. It's going to become more. You have to understand the difference between that reflection of what is the other version of you, the dark version of you, your shadow version, and what is the version of you now that is not actively experiencing what you're being triggered by, but you're being triggered by it. We've already come out of this old identity. The template has already been set. That's the thing. It is unfolding as we speak and continues to do so. But the closer we get to this convergence point, whenever it is, the more that we're going to get pulled into the actual experience energetically of ourselves in our mirror reflection. I hope that makes sense, and I appreciate you holding space for me while I share those aspects about my life. And I'm sharing them so that you see that there is actual experiences that are going to come up and continue to come up that are related to this, and it's part of our experience of transformation, right? We cannot deny our polarization, even if it's not part of this reality right now. There's something about it that's really important. So medical tyranny, trafficking, it's good the light is being shown, but it's so ugly. The fact that these things are now in open discussion alone is a huge shift, just beginning. Thank you. That is great. Real estate, I work in it daily. Don't get me started. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Try approving mortgage apps when all you want to do is warn people it's not the time to buy. Buy low, not high. Yeah, if we wanted to sell right now, we would double our money. No doubt, we would double our money. Portland is only 2 hours away from me. Oh, that's right. That's right. You're in Eugene. Oh my gosh. I want to DM you. I'm just curious about since you are in real estate in that area. I want to know what it is that, why do people still want to be there in those areas and pay that much money now that the secret is kind of out, right? Like I was really trying to leave before 2020, but that was my impetus to get out of that area. But I already saw the writing on the wall well before that. And, but now it's obvious. So it's not hidden anymore. So I just want to know why people are still willing to like shell out like that kind of, like, who has that money? Anyway, I guess you're talking about mortgage apps, right? That people are just like so desperate for a home or whatever that they are, yeah, I am going to get a hold of you, that they are willing to like just sell themselves out completely. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. That's why we could have sold and doubled our money this season and took off, but I don't think I could live with myself like, and that's not even that much. Doubling our investment in this property is really not even close to what you would pay to live in Portland. So I guess I shouldn't feel that guilty about it. So, all right, guys, let's look at the chart for today and just kind of get ourselves into, what we're going to be looking at moving through this is a big week. Like I said, it's no joke. Mother's Day gifts. Yes. I will be on the beach in Charleston for Mother's Day. Then we do a trip every year with my mom and my sister and my sister-in-law. We take a trip for a long weekend every year, and it keeps getting longer and longer and longer. But this year we're just like got a condo on the beach in Charleston and just want to I just want to chill. That's all I want to do. I just want to be left alone at the ocean for a little while. So anyway, I digress. All right, friends, here is our chart for today. So the moon did, before moving into Pisces, very late last night, very early this morning, came into a sextile with Pallas Athena. Now, Pallas Athena is going to be in a square to Pluto exactly tomorrow. So we want to pay attention just in this moment here, what that may have represented as the moon is in this last degrees of Aquarius. We see here 27 to 28 degrees of Aquarius. Now, number one, this is opposite the galactic degree for Atlantis. This is also the natal moon degree of the United States chart, is 27 to 28 degrees Aquarius. So, and is also two starseed markings. It is trine to Betelgeuse and in the Orion constellation, and is also square the Pleiades, right? The Pleiades star cluster. So this moment here in a sextile to Pallas Athena, who is activating Andromeda, the constellation, activating Andromeda, the galaxy, and is in a position of, she represents strategy and wisdom, right? Wisdom and strategy in war. And we all know that we are in an information war, and we have been for a long time, and a war of consciousness. And those things can be, they can be, thought of as the same thing or a harmonic of each other, right? Information influences our conscious awareness and our consciousness, and it is in the realm of thought and idea they're both expressed. So anyway, this sextile in this moment is, what is it that we've, been able to gather in for ourselves? Have we been able to, gather all the resources that we need from the collective as a whole, from society, right? The collective voice of all of us together, is it able to hold, are we able to hold that, right? Do we have the capacity to hold all of the resources we've been storing up since the beginning of this country, right? At the signing of the Declaration of Independence, but also too, you're talking about other, and in square to the Pleiades again, that has a lot to do with it's not just about being in communion with the natural world, but how do we use technology to store and utilize this energy, is a big part of Aquarius as an archetype as well. So this sextile before this even, before the moon even crossed over, I think was a moment of how do we have everything. Do we have the capacity to hold the bandwidth, right? Hold it and store it in a way that allows us to really kind of face the music. And as a strategy, the strategy is to face the music, the wisdom to face the music, the wisdom to face the audience when the performer has disappointed expectations. It's a sense of real responsibility. Like the thing about Andromeda as a galaxy and as a constellation, the beings, it really is about self-responsibility. And this is about the ability, the capacity to stand in our authenticity in the face of the impact that we've made with our self, right? With our authentic self. So I think that the sextile really just kind of like in our dreams was just like, yeah, it really just showed us like where we need to shore up some things, where we have some leaks, right? And where we are actually able to hold energetically and spiritually and internally the fullness of the collective bandwidth of the collective resonance of all of our voices together. Because in fact, that is going to be how we strategically are able to face the music. And that's a big part of what Palace represents, strategy and wisdom in war. So then the moon comes into Pisces after this. So let's see here. Like I said, Juno has now moved into Pisces as well. And so they're going to come into a conjunction actually, or they did early this morning. They came into a conjunction, and Juno represents the state. She is the advocate in the courtroom for the actual defendant, right? She represents, she defends marriage. She defends the contractual agreements, right? She is the advocate. Way more interested in the state of humanity than her counterpart Zeus, who is much more interested in the bigger picture of things and the overall meaning of it. She is down executing it and advocating for us. Now, the second degree of Pisces, we know, is not only coming very close to Fomalhaut, but is also about the need to blend in, right? There's that chameleon. There's the mouse, right? To blend in. The squirrel that is, that is hiding from the hunters, right? While we are what? We are pulling in, conserving our resource, conserving our energy, realizing that when we are fully dissolved into the entire collective experience, that there is a necessity, and we see this all through Pisces in different ways, to be able to camouflage ourselves, to shield ourselves, to protect ourselves, right? Otherwise, you just become a martyr for over and over and over. And there's not to say that there's nothing to be said for that, but you have to have very strong conviction and boundaries in order to not get pulled into somebody else's desires, right? Or somebody else's agenda. And this is, again, you get pulled into the dark side of things. This is exactly what happens. So there's an importance here, and Juno is the asteroid that represents the advocate, right, and the defender of the state in some ways, and the human, the human experience is. There's something here about really pulling in our resources, to be cautious, to not necessarily, wave, to make it obvious where we are energetically, but to really pull kind of in a little bit. Because there's a lot of the beating of the drum now, and a lot of active energy, and it's just going to be that much more, that much more intense as people are triggered and triggered and triggered, right? And it just keeps coming closer, right? That version of you getting closer and closer. So again, the moon meeting Juno this morning was that kind of, we felt, this opportunity to really feel the advocacy, really feel that there is something there that is allowing us to find that camouflage or to just take care of ourselves and conserve our energy and not put ourselves out there to just be fodder for someone else. That is a big part of this, because you can see that all over the place. And I mean, it could be as simple as just a cash grab, right? Just trying to make as much money as you can while you can, but also feeding the fear, right? Rather than empowering people to be ready for the destabilized experience that precedes new growth and transformation. And, Pluto stationing retrograde at the end of this week is very much about, coming to the fallow period, the emptiness period. And that's going to be materializing so many ways. So that is, now that the moon is in Pisces, that was the first real connection, was with Juno. So let's see here. Mercury is in conjunction with the Pleiades now. It's actually in conjunction with Algol, right? The head of the Gorgon or Medusa. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So the moon makes that conjunction to Juno and then comes into a sextile to Pisces. Here. Right? Because we have, soon the sun is going to be activating 2 starseed positions tomorrow. By tomorrow, it's going to be a Draco activation and Andromeda. So we'll talk about that in the daily to look at the crossover there, because they both have connections to, this particular degree is connected to these 2 starseed locations that seem to not, they have a totally different intentions here, but that's for tomorrow. In the meantime, when we look at the sun in a sextile to the moon, right? That's that 60-degree angle that represents opportunity, it represents harmony, it represents investment, and it certainly represents a learning moment, right? A creation or a transformation based on bringing the polarization together, and actually taking the initiative to do something about that. So the sun in a sextile to the Pisces moon at this time is, where's your commitment? Truly. And do you feel as if you are going to experience an emotional return and support for everything that you yourself are giving yourself over to? And I would say that the sextile to the sun in this moment, right, is the identification with a very, identification with a really strong desire to conquer obstacles, to bridge a gap in some way. So we're identifying with, we're finding our identity and our sustainment and our voice through, okay, let's build this bridge, right? Let's bridge this gap. Let's conquer actual obstacles in front of us, and identifying with the fact that we can do this. And I think that moment here is, again, an opportunity to establish within ourselves, or to take the feeling within ourselves of, yes, I am in full communion with the society that I'm part of, the spiritual society, the collective society, and also trust and feel and have faith in the return of that, of which I offer. And I think that then you'll find that those 2 things in a sextile are like, oh yeah, well, now we can bridge the gap, so to speak. And this is, again, how you feel on the inside and how you express yourself on the outside. But there has to be a sense of feeling like there will be a support, right? How many times have you ever done group work where everybody in theory is like, yeah, but when it comes down to it, you end up being the only person doing anything? Now, part of that is, being, an overachiever, or just being naturally a leader, and in some ways naturally just know what to do. But at the same time, then you end up feeling resentful. Then you end up feeling like you're not supported. Then you end up feeling like you put yourself out there and nothing, you're not really getting the return because, people are not really, they're not really invested, they're just happy to let you do it, right? And that's not going to be the case anymore. Now we have to find that within us and experience the place where we want to commit to, who we want to commit to, what ends we want to commit to, what timeline are we committing to. And I would say not even timeline at this point, but the convergence point. And that will, I think, give us direction in some ways, where in terms of how to bridge this gap, right? Whatever that means, conquer the obstacles. So knowing where Taurus is in your chart is going to be important. And also knowing that the sun is going to activate Draco and Andromeda by tomorrow is going to show how those convergence, how things had been, split apart in terms of different ideologies, right? Draco versus Andromeda. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, because that's a interesting story that I don't quite understand yet, but I'm starting to. Venus is going to sextile. You can see here, coming to a sextile with the nodes, right? A trine to the south node, a sextile to the north node. And so, yes, we can, if we do nothing, right? Venus in a trine to the south node in Scorpio is that we can transubstantiate these previous experiences, or tap into how we've done this in the past, right? How we have taken these base drives and brought them to a form of more etheric potency through transubstantiation somehow. And Venus in this degree of Pisces at this point is just, again, giving everything, substantiating through our own giving of something valuable, something precious, something sacred within us is given over, just like the medium essentially gives themselves over as a vessel in a seance, right? And is oftentimes really exhausted after that happens. Or channeling, right? When you become a actual channel. And I'm not advocating for or against it at this point. It's something you have to figure out for yourself. And I, if you want to know my opinion about it, I'll share it with you, but not right now. Venus does represent, and in terms of embodiment, in terms of what it is that we are sensitive to in the here and now, in physically, materially, magnetically. And, Venus is magnetic in a lot of different ways. And so, again, it's our own magnetic field that we can offer to this experience of substantiation. And so it's very supported. We don't even have to do anything to tap into our past soul's experience of doing this before. Where it can be really utilized and we can find transformation is when we are, aligning with and setting our sights on the direction we're going, which is about the natural excellence and certifying in some ways that which time and pressure has rendered something precious, right? It is the gems under, the surface or in the earth itself, right? They go through a process of becoming valuable because of time and pressure. And then we unearth them, then we turn them into jewelry or something else. And then they have a sense of personal worth because of that, right? But the process itself is very much about the natural experience. And I also get a sense here now that this is very piezoelectric in terms of an actual experience, that when the quartz within the planet, for instance, is pressurized, right? It actually allows energy to move across its surface. I think that this is a big part of where the North Node is pulling us at a soul level to be like the quartz crystal, to be piezoelectric, to realize that pressure and the influence of heat and pressure and intensity is actually allowing energy to move across us and be amplified or be sent around the planet. And that also, that's a semiconductor, right? That's how a lot of our digital energy really, or digital devices really work. So I get this sense too. And the sextile with Venus is a lot of, okay, how do we take that effect? How do we actually materialize something by feeling the feeling into how we've done it before. We have done it before, but it depends on which version of yourself is doing it that you're going to get the outcome that you want. If you continue to stay focused on revenge or dominance or fear or a sense of wanting to get even or just, having that raw sense of anger come through you and acting on it, then that's what you're going to get. If we allow the pressure and intensity of this situation to treat us in that piezoelectric way, we're going to, our signal is going to be really, really strong. And we have the capacity to really materialize something very powerful that we won't allow, now we won't be destroyed by, right? Because this Atlantis thing is coming back around and continues to do so. So that's Venus and the nodes. Moon, and by the end of today, the moon is going to then come into a conjunction with Mars, right? So you're also going to feel like this sense of quickening within each of us on a spiritual trajectory or, something that has to do with the transcendent journey here. So 9 degrees of Pisces. Now, there's something that I'm going to go back to about Mintaka. So I'm going to put a pin in it. If I forget, please remind me in the chat because it's really important. But the moon meeting Mars, 9 degrees of Pisces. Number one, this isn't a square to, we're getting close to Aldebaran. So this isn't a square to Aldebaran. This has something to, this is about the quickening, the self-quickening. It's like a jockey on a horse, right? That's starting to like spur the horse down, the last turn, right? And it's the sense of you are getting yourself to move faster, to reach a conclusion or a goal that is not just for you, but is for the sake of the whole, right? And the experience of the whole. But it's you that's actually initiating the process of the quickening. Now with Mars in tow, right? These two coming together just by the end of today, I feel like that all that fire energy with the Emperor and with the Princess of Wands and the Queen of Wands, the Queen of Forces, all of that's going to reach kind of like this moment where we can either use that energy for the quickening, for the transmutation, or it's going to drag us into an old state that is really not going to, it only exists in this third dimensional experience, right? And the lower fourth, right? That's part of it as well. So we also are going to know that, things are going to start amping up around this too, right? Whatever your agenda is, whatever you're trying to substantiate, whatever you're trying to bring forward is going to receive kind of this emotional, just like intensity by the end of today of like, okay, right? It's time to spur that horse, right? It's time to get at it. And it's going to be very feeling oriented. So that's going to be interesting. Now, the thing I wanted to talk about with Mintaka is that asteroid Ceres, is in conjunction with Mintaka today, right? Mintaka is the star in Orion's belt. It's the one that is the northernmost, right, of the belt, and it is the star system where the water world around Mintaka is. There's a lot of star seeds from here. Their world does not, the Mintakan water world is not currently existing anymore. There's a sense of loss and grief around this, but also too the beings that come from here and the star seeds that are Mintakan. It's such a strong connection to ultimately the ability to move through the state of the collective unconscious, to flow through it like a being through the water. It's very difficult to connect back into that without connecting back into that trauma and that grief. Now, what's interesting is, yes, Venus is in this connection to the nodes, but will be in a direct square as the same time with, or right before it really, with Mintaka. And whatever that story is for you, whatever connection you have, if you have one, to this particular star system, right? And these starseed origins, and this idea of really finding the organic wholeness that represents the two polarizations coming together in a dance. They're distinctly still different, but you're able to find the space in which they blend and are able to generate energy and power and generate consciousness. This Ceres, asteroid Ceres, she's really a dwarf planet. If you've ever seen the comparison size, I mean, asteroid is, I think, underestimating or describing what Ceres really is. She is a dwarf planet. It's massive, and represents the goddess of agriculture, grain, the goddess of the seasons, right? And the contrast and contraction and release, right? And so in Gemini, she's truly been addressing the polarization of consciousness of the actual planet, and our own process of having to go into our underworld and come back out, and how important that is to being fully aware of who we are, because it's when we're not aware, we can't look at ourselves in the mirror, that we can't have that perspective, that we are so easily taken in by one side or the other without balance. So this Mintakan thing with Venus in this moment in a square here is a sense that it could be very easy in this moment to kind of lose ourselves to the mandate. And when I say mandate, that can mean a lot of different things, right? But the mandate coming down from the mountains, so to speak, the bringing of the spiritual awareness to a sense of the everyday, or how to apply it to your everyday life, is something that we may be waiting for, or expecting, or really even drawing to us. And Ceres, as the goddess of our own process of going into the underworld and back out, which is really what's reflected in the stories of Ceres and Persephone, because of her, having to spend half the year in the underworld with Pluto, and the other half she can come back to the surface, because you're not allowed to leave once you go in there. But there's a part of us that is represented by the feminine, represented by Ceres, and the seasonal necessity of growth and creation. It's about doing it ourselves. It really is. And we're still in this place where we are the planet herself, and that process of going into our own shadow is still very much in the realm of the polarization. And we wouldn't know that we have a mirror image without the mirror image, without the polarization itself. And we've been going through this now for a hot minute, especially this lunar cycle. So I don't know what the Mintakan story necessarily is, and perhaps if you are Mintakan Starseed, and I am too, definitely. And what I find is that it's in that there's something, for me in particular, it's not very well aspected in my chart. Let's just say that. It causes stress. It causes ego bump, you know what I mean? It causes dissonance, right? There's a sense of shame and guilt, or something that I am pulling away from when it comes to that as well. So Mintaka, though, we have to... it's kind of like that happened, yes, and there's a deep trauma and grief around that for those who have inherent memory at a soul level about that. But that does not mean that it is completely over. And I think that this Venus square, this series in conjunction with Mintaka might be part of the sobbing, right? Might be part of this incredible purge as well, that we have to acknowledge these experiences for what they are, to even acknowledge that we are polarized. So, and Venus, like I said, this is just embodied experience, right? The magnetics. And so we may we have to be mindful about what we're attracting into our experience in some ways, through our actual body and through our own magnetic field. So, excuse me. I think it's probably time to end, right? My throat is just not cooperating. So that's what I wanted to bring up about Mintaka. So we have a pretty busy week ahead, guys. In terms of the astrology. So just a really, like I said, Pallas Athena and Pluto will be in a direct square tomorrow. The moon is still going to be in Pisces into tomorrow as well. Mercury is going to be in a sextile to Jupiter. Venus is going to meet Neptune on Wednesday. Mercury is going to be in a trine to Pluto on Thursday, right before Pluto stations retrograde. So this is perspective, a much needed perspective that we'll have the opportunity to have at this trine. That will come back around so many times. And if you've gotten the reading from me for How Can It Bloom, then you know that many times throughout the next couple of months, there will be this perspective moment with where Pluto is with all these trines from Taurus. And then Pluto stations retrograde on the 29th. Mercury is going to move into its home sign of Gemini on the 29th. And then the 30th is our solar eclipse, right? So the new moon forecasts are coming. I'm going to be releasing another reading sale for the eclipse cycle that's going to run from April 30th, May 5th, 16th is the full moon, October to November, right? And so I'll be emailing out and posting promotional material very soon for that. So that's something, if you're interested in, you can book a reading to see how the next 6 months are, the general themes for you over the next 6 months of eclipse season. And I am going to post an actual report, a general report for this time for subscribers. I'll give you the whole thing, of course, and then you'll be able to purchase it as well if you're not a subscriber, and there'll be free content as well. So that's all coming this week. It's a busy week, guys, but ultimately being able to understand this convergence and being able to feel the reflection, see the reflection, understand the reflection within you, and know that this is part of the process of the convergence is going to keep you from being pulled back into the all of the different angles that are attempting to control for this process, rather than humanity as a whole making the decision for ourselves. And that's the only way this is going to happen anyway. So however that needs to happen when the time of convergence really arrives is what's necessary. So even in the most difficult experiences that are unfolding for you, that are triggering you, be willing to look at yourself in the mirror as you're feeling those, and also to see the bigger picture of what's happening. Yes, it's really upsetting to have the experience that I talked about earlier, another person, right, that has been disclosed for violating in the most, in my opinion, and I think that, a lot of people's opinions, it's the most egregious, right? To participate in anything that is going to perpetuate the most egregious violations is something we're all going to have to continue to hold space for, and to realize and be able to, when we have that perspective of a clear and still waters, we'll be able to see the other side of ourselves that would have been here already if this convergence wasn't actually what was going on, or if we were in full bifurcation, right? That there was a version of that version of ourselves would have to live out that timeline. And I think that's horrible. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, not even my own enemies, right? And I have perpetrators, right? You know what I mean? There are people that have done those egregious things to me that I've had to heal from. And even that, I wouldn't, wishing hell on anyone, even those who probably deserve it, is not our job. And it pulls us back into, essentially being Darth Vader and the dark side. So it's tempting. And it usually comes out of a lot of pain, but that's not where we're going. But we can use that energy, and this is where the Draco starseeds are really holding it down for a huge karmic release on that level, because they have not been so kind about the way they have used and utilized their serpent wisdom. So, my friends, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. So if you are interested in reading Energy to Work to Support Your Process, you just want to learn more about Catalyst Energies, you can visit the website. That's in the description box below. The link to Subscribe Star is in the description box below as well. The link to this image, everything you need is going to be down there. How to find other platforms, how to email, all of that stuff. So guys, please take care of yourselves as you are moving through this week. We will be we'll be doing the daily medicine transmission tomorrow. I'm going to go through, I'm going to do some more of the live chat. Thank you, Light on Change. You're awesome, and you should be taking care of you as well. So Barbara says that mirror reflection of the alternative makes total sense, and I thank you for holding space for it in all of us. I met this alternative self this weekend. It was intense past weekend, and the card reading reflects the upset and the reorganization so beautifully. Yes. That's so good. Thanks for explanation of convergence of timelines. It made total sense of my weekend. And Light on Change says, I agreed. Intense is the word for sure. I definitely thought it was intense as well. And I also made like a conscious effort to kind of submerge myself in the things I know for a fact that ground me, which for me is working with the plants and working with the soil and working with my hands. And so that really, really helped. It still didn't take away what was surfacing, right? I still had to go through that, but this is what we're here for. We're here for the mission, right? That has been made very clear to so many of us. So let me know if you guys need anything. I am certainly open to email if you have any questions, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the daily medicine transmission. Take care of yourselves. Take care of others as best you can. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.